Welcome to Veil Torn. These are their stories, finding Christ within.
For centuries, humanity has basically built these towering telescopes, mapped the cosmos, and, calculated exact celestial coordinates.
Yeah.
All because we're entirely convinced that if we just looked hard enough, we could pinpoint the actual geographic location of heaven.
Right, like it's a literal spot on a map.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We treat the ultimate good like like a distant planet we just haven't discovered yet. But for today's deep dive, we're asking, what if the map we've been using for millennia is completely upside down?
It's a huge question because we have this profound habit of applying physical laws to metaphysical realities.
I really do.
I mean, we desperately want the divine to be a destination, a
Yeah.
place with clear borders, a fixed altitude, and like a set of driving directions.
Which brings us to the source text we were exploring today. It's this wildly colorful, deeply folksy test that basically takes a sledgehammer to that entire geographical model of the universe.
Yeah, it completely tears it down.
It does. And the mission of this deep dive is to unpack this author's paradigm shift. They redefine heaven not as this distant, unreachable place, but as a reality found directly within ourselves.
And if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I'm not a theologian, why should I care?
Right, exactly.
The core message here is actually for you. The text makes it clear that accessing this realm isn't for elite scholars or celestial navigators.
Yeah, the author basically says heaven is for beginners. It's for those willing to be completely nearsighted. And I love this phrase, as trusting as a toad in the hands of a child.
It's such a brilliant, vivid image. And the author starts diagnosing this whole issue by pointing out what we might call the geography problem.
The geography problem,
Right. They observe that people consistently treat the kingdom of God like it's a piece of real estate in the next county.
I mean, it's such a brilliant way to phrase it. Real estate in the next county. People act like they need a surveyor's chain and a long-distance ticket just to find salvation.
Right. The author points out that humanity has spent an embarrassing amount of time tinkering with, quote, ghastly devices.
Ghastly devices.
Yeah, just trying to figure out if heaven is, 500 miles up or 5,000 miles up.
Which is ridiculous when you say it out loud. And the author notes this behavior makes the Almighty seem like a shy debtor hiding behind a cloud.
A shy debtor. I love that.
Like God owes humanity money and is just peeking around a cumulus cloud hoping we don't serve him with papers or something.
Framing God as a shy debtor really exposes the absurdity of our spatial reasoning, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because when we apply altitude and distance to the divine, we inherently shrink it. I mean, a God you can track down with a surveyor's chain is a God you can control.
Exactly. Real estate in the county is finite. It has property lines.
Right. It's bound by the laws of physics. We project our own physical limitations onto the universe because, well, it is fundamentally terrifying to consider a reality that isn't neatly contained on a map.
But why is that our default human setting, though? Because we still do this constantly today.
Oh, absolutely.
We think peace or meaning is a physical destination. Like, we tell ourselves that if we just go on a yoga retreat in Bali, or, move out of the city and into the suburbs, we will finally find our center.
We're still buying those long-distance tickets.
Exactly. Why do we do that?
Well, external journeys provide a tangible checklist, and that serves as a highly effective distraction.
The distraction. Interesting.
Yeah. Booking a flight to Bali or squinting through a telescope to find heaven 5,000 miles up, it gives the human mind a physical task to complete. It's basically a form of procrastination.
Oh, wow. Procrastinating on our own spiritual growth.
Exactly. As long as salvation or peace is located out there in the external world, you are temporarily excused from doing the agonizing, messy work of looking inward. So the geography problem isn't a mistake in navigation, It is a psychological defense mechanism.
And the author actually admits to using that exact defense mechanism in the text.
They do, yeah. They're very honest about it.
They call themselves thick-headed, confessing they used to view heaven as this big blue bowl sitting just atop the stars.
The big blue bowl.
Yeah, and because they were always looking up at this massive, distant bowl, it just made them feel entirely insignificant.
Which is understandable.
Totally. They actually describe feeling about it as significant as a tick on a stray dog looking up at the sky.
Man, a tick on a stray dog. That is the inevitable crisis of scale.
It really is.
When you apply the vastness of astrophysics to your own spirituality, of course the human soul shrinks to the size of a parasite on a stray animal. You just become a statistical anomaly in a cold, massive universe.
And things get incredibly dark for the author at this point in the text.
Very dark.
They look around at their immediate physical surroundings and realize the world is just tangled in different mess. Like, they observe that the exact same dirt that grows a beautiful, fragrant rose is the very same dirt that grows a stinging nettle.
Nature just doesn't care.
It doesn't. And this realization that the physical world is this dualistic mess of good and evil, combined with the belief that heaven is an unreachable blue bowl well, it plunges the author into a severe existential depression.
A really deep melancholy.
Yeah, they describe it as being lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut.
Lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut, it's the total collapse of their geographical model.
Right.
The telescope didn't provide any answers, and the Earth is just indiscriminately producing pain and beauty from the exact same soil.
Yeah, the external world just completely fails to provide any moral or spiritual anchor, leaving behind this terrifying void. But I am genuinely stuck on a specific detail the author mentions here, though.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if the entire goal of religious study is to understand God and find comfort, why does the author explicitly note that knowing the Bible backward and forward was completely useless during this crisis?
Yeah, that's a huge point.
Because you would assume that theological mastery would be the ultimate life raft, right? Yet they say the devil kept whispering heathenish thoughts in their ear like a persistent horsefly, and all their intellectual knowledge offered absolutely zero protection.
Zero.
Why does the author completely discard academic theological study here?
Because data collection cannot cure existential dread.
Wow. Data collection.
Right. I mean, intellectual understanding, memorizing scriptures, debating theology, knowing a text backward and forward, that is still fundamentally an external exercise.
It's still looking outside yourself.
Exactly. You can memorize every topological map of the Himalayan mountains, but that knowledge will not keep you warm if you are actually freezing in the snow.
The map is not the territory.
Precisely. And that persistent horsefly of doubt bypasses the intellect entirely.
It's an emotional problem.
Right. Doubt is an emotional and spiritual affliction, not a logical puzzle waiting to be solved. I mean, a horsefly doesn't debate you. It just relentlessly torments you.
That's such a good way to put it.
The author recognizes that the paradox of the rose and the nettle cannot be resolved by reading more books. When the psychological weight of your own insignificance really sets in, academic theology is just a shield made of paper. Right. Experiencing the divine requires a completely different mechanism of engagement than just intellectualizing it.
So if intellectualizing the problem just leaves you swatting at horseflies, what is the alternative?
Well, the author realizes they have to completely abandon the passive role of the observer.
Yeah. They decide to quit measuring the distance to heaven and start wrestling with it.
Wrestling it.
They describe taking their soul and literally throwing it at the Lord's feet, refusing to budge, acting as stubborn as a mule at a creek crossing until they got a blessing.
It's the transition from cartography to combat.
Cartography to combat, I love that. And they write that they delved so deep into their own rib cage that they finally broke through the gates of hell and landed right in the center of God's innermost being.
Which is such intense imagery.
It is. We usually hear spiritual awakenings described as these, like, serene, lotus flower blooming moments of peaceful meditation.
Yeah, someone sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop.
Right. But this imagery is exhausting. Breaking through the gates of hell inside your own ribcage, throwing yourself down like a stubborn mule. The violence of this internal struggle is just jarring.
But I think true internal realization is almost never peaceful at the onset.
Why not?
Because it requires dismantling your own deeply entrenched psychological barriers. Think about what the gates of hell inside a human ribcage actually represent.
Our own defenses.
Exactly. Those gates are constructed by our own ego. They are forged from our unhealed trauma, our deeply held shame, our pride, and our selfish desires.
We build them ourselves.
Yeah, we build those gates to protect ourselves from being vulnerable.
So we are the ones actively guarding the gates to our own salvation.
We are both the warden and the prisoner.
Man.
And to bypass your own ego and confront the darkness you harbor inside yourself is an incredibly messy, active process.
Hence the mule.
Right. You have to be as stubborn as that mule at a creek crossing because every instinct you have will scream at you to turn back when the introspection gets uncomfortable.
So true.
The author is basically articulating that enlightenment isn't something you float into on a cloud of good vibes. You have to violently conquer your own inner hellscape before you can access the divine center. The ego does not surrender quietly.
And the relief of finally breaking through those gates is described in such visceral terms, too.
Yeah, the contrast is beautiful.
The author compares the feeling of landing in God's innermost being to a bridegroom finding his bride, or to a man realizing he isn't actually dead after all.
Oh, man, realizing he isn't dead.
Just imagine the pure adrenaline of that sensation, like waking up, gasping for air, and realizing you are still alive.
Yeah.
It is a total resurrection of the self.
And winning that internal battle fundamentally alters how the individual perceives the external world. The lens through which they view reality is entirely swapped out.
The text says that once that light clicked on, the whole view changed.
Everything changes.
The author is no longer looking up at a big blue bowl in the sky. They suddenly see God in the weeds and the crabgrass.
In the crabgrass.
Yeah. They describe the entire universe as the boss playing a tune on a cosmic fiddle, and humanity are simply the instruments.
Which is such a folksy, brilliant metaphor.
It really is. And even if some of us are entirely out of tune, we are still fundamentally part of the music being played.
The divine is no longer restricted to the pristine, the distant, or the holy. It is suddenly recognized in the mundane, the overlooked, and the flawed.
And the author's tone shifts dramatically here. Because earlier they were a melancholic tick on a dog, but now they address humanity as little children of flesh.
Little children of flesh, yeah.
And they note they use that term with the same affection a farmer has for a particularly dim-witted calf.
A dim-witted calf. It strips away all the high-minded academic religious pretension, doesn't it?
Completely. It perfectly aligns with the idea that experiencing heaven is really for beginners. You have to be willing to be nearsighted. You have to put the telescope away and just be, as we said earlier, as trusting as a toad in the hands of a child.
And that nearsightedness is the ultimate advantage.
How so?
Well, if you are always looking 5,000 miles up, you are missing the profound reality operating right at your feet. The author points out that when St. Stephen saw the heavens open in the biblical account, he didn't look up so much as he looked in.
He looked in. The shift from outward projection to inward realization.
Exactly.
They really drive this point home by stating, there is no near or far with God. The divine presence is as everywhere as the dust on a Kansas road.
Just on a Kansas road.
Yeah. And if we look at how that metaphor completely dismantles the real estate in the next county metaphor from the very beginning of the text, the contrast is just staggering.
It really is night and day.
Because real estate implies exclusivity, right? Wealth, property lines, and a journey you have to travel to get there.
But dust on a Kansas road is the absolute democratization of the divine.
Democratization, yes.
Kansas road dust is inescapable. It coats the boots of the wealthy landowner and the impoverished traveler equally.
It doesn't discriminate.
Right. It gets in your hair, it settles on your skin, you breathe it into your lungs. It is wildly mundane and completely ubiquitous. You don't need a surveyor's chain or a long-distance ticket to find dust. It finds you regardless of your status or your location.
By equating God to Kansas road dust, the author just destroys the concept of a hierarchical heaven.
Utterly destroys it.
Heaven transforms from an exclusive VIP club in the clouds into something as close and common as the dirt we walk on every single day. Access to the divine is immediate.
Which leaves the reader with a profound existential choice.
What's the choice?
Well, if heaven is in your boots and God is in the crabgrass, the entire paradigm of seeking changes.
Right, you can't keep looking for it in Bali. The author issues a final, urgent set of instructions based on this new paradigm. To draw near, they say you have to quit trying to jump over the moon.
Move over the moon, yeah.
You have to walk into the hidden secret place inside your own soul. That is where the dark wheel of our own stubbornness finally gets licked by the light and gentleness of his nature.
The dark wheel of stubbornness.
And the text states that heaven is an uncreated place that is already open for business right where you are sitting.
An uncreated reality shatters the illusion of distance completely.
Uncreated, meaning it was never built.
Right. Because it is uncreated, it isn't subject to time, space, or physical boundaries. It isn't a geographical location you travel to. It is an omnipresent state of being that you just surrender to.
Wow.
It completely neutralizes the human urge to pack a bag and search for meaning elsewhere.
And the author bluntly tells the reader that since you live, breathe, and think because of him, you might as well quit acting like a stranger in your own house.
Stop acting like a stranger in your own house.
Yeah. And then we get this stunning final directive. They write, Step off the plank of your own wrath and find some rest in the mercy that was there before you even knew how to ask for it.
Step off the plank of wrath.
I mean, think about the dark wheel of your own stubbornness for a second, right where you're listening to this. How often do you build up a plank of wrath to walk on in your own life?
We do it constantly.
We really do. It makes me think of someone treading water frantically in a swimming pool, exhausting every muscle in their body, convinced they're about to drown, only to finally stop thrashing and realize they drifted into the shallow end hours ago.
Yes.
They could have just put their feet down at any time.
That is exactly it. We exhaust ourselves fighting a current that isn't even there.
Yeah.
The plank of wrath is our ego's desperate need to quantify everything, to judge the world, to measure our distance from perfection with those surveyor chains we talked about.
Always measuring.
Right. We choose to balance precariously on this narrow, angry plank, terrifying ourselves with the imagined abyss below us while completely ignoring the sea of uncreated mercy that's just surrounding us.
But stepping off that plank doesn't mean falling into the abyss.
No, not at all.
It means realizing you were never suspended over an abyss in the first place.
Yeah.
You were just stepping down into the shallow end, finding the rest that has always been waiting for you before you even had the vocabulary to ask for it.
It is a radical call to stop striving and start accepting.
Right.
The exhausting search for external validation or distant salvation is entirely manufactured by our own refusal to sit quietly with ourselves.
So let's trace the incredible arc this text has taken us on today. We started by diagnosing the foolishness of cartography, squinting through telescopes, tinkering with ghastly devices, and trying to measure God like a piece of distant real estate.
Which only resulted in feeling as small and insignificant as a tick on a stray dog.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that crisis of scale exposed the failure of pure intellectualism.
Because knowing the text backward and forward couldn't shield the author from the existential melancholy of watching the natural world produce both roses and nettles indiscriminately.
Right. That failure forced the author to abandon the telescope and start wrestling internally, throwing their soul down like a stubborn mule, breaking through the dark, ego-driven gates of hell inside their own rib cage until the light finally clicked on.
And once the internal barriers fell, the external universe was no longer a distant blue bowl, but a cosmic fiddle.
The divine transformed from a shy debtor hiding behind a cloud into a reality as common, close, and democratic as the dust on a Kansas road.
It's just brilliant.
We found an uncreated heaven right in our own boots, designed for beginners willing to be as trusting as a toad.
The text successfully deconstructs the entire human impulse to outsource our spiritual growth to geography.
It really does. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over that builds on these metaphors.
Okay, I'm ready.
Earlier in the text, the author beautifully pointed out that the exact same external dirt grows the beautiful rose and the stinging nettle.
Right, the inherent paradox of the natural world.
Yeah. But if we follow the author's logic to its ultimate conclusion, if we truly find heaven by delving deep into the hidden secret place of our own ribcage,
Yeah.
doesn't that mean our internal soul contains that exact same dirt?
Oh, wow. The macrocosm is reflected perfectly in the microcosm.
Exactly. We carry both the nettle of our worst, most stubborn impulses, that angry plank of wrath we talked about, and the beautiful rose of divine, uncreated mercy right next to each other in our own internal soil.
It is all growing in the exact same ribcage.
It is.
The journey continues, hearts still turning. Come back to learn how another veil was torn.